Okay, so I hope my screen is visible to you. Before getting into a new topic, let's quickly revise what we have discussed yesterday. So first, we've at the beginning we have seen the R3 architecture or the Tier 3 architecture and how is it different in both ECC and HANA systems. So in ECC system, although the layers are same, we'll have three layers. First is the presentation layer, which is nothing but our screen. Then is the application layer, which is a background layer under which all the logical processing happens. And finally, it is the database layer. Sorry. Finally, it is a database layer under which the extraction from the database happens. So first, the use of presentation layer is used to give the input and see the output. And the purpose of application layer is to have all the logical processing in it. And the purpose of database layer is to pull the data from the database and push it to application layer. So in ECC systems, since we use third-party database providers like SQL or Oracle, etc., we have to be careful that we should not put more load on the database while pulling this data. But whereas on the other hand, in HANA 3-tier architecture, although the layers are same as before, but we have one edge that since the database that we are going to use in HANA system is HANA database, which is developed by the SAP itself, we can put more load on the database and we can try to put less processing on the application layer. The presentation layer serves the same purpose. It is used to give the input and see the output. Then, what are all the differences between ECC and HANA system? So first, in ECC, it is a normal databases or third-party databases like SQL and Oracle, etc. HANA is an in-house database which uses memory concept, RAM concept for faster processing. In ECC, it is a row store table concept. So when I say row store, when I want to find something, when I want to filter something, the search happens in horizontal manner, like in this manner, left to right, left to right. But in HANA system, it happens in column store. That means it tries to find my details in vertical order like this, up to down, top to down. Then ECC system has slower processing power. The reason for slower processing is also because it uses row store concept, whereas in HANA, since it uses column store concept, the extraction power is quicker. Then in ECC, we'll have multiple categories of table. In general, three categories. We'll see what those categories are. But yeah, we'll have three categories of tables in ECC system, whereas in HANA system, all those categories are clubbed into one category. In ECC, by default, every table that we create will be a row store table. We cannot change it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was saying in ECC system, by default, every table is a row store table, whereas in HANA system, by default, it will be a column store table, but we have that provision to change it to a row store table. Then we've seen the concept of client and server, whereas server is nothing but if we want to connect to SAP system, we'll have to go through a medium. We'll have to go through a channel in order to connect to the server. That channel is called as a server. Then the client. So client is used to divide our SAP systems into multiple areas. For example, it can be divided across for like development system, one client should for the development system, one client for the testing system, or you can also divide it based upon the regions like person sitting in India can use one client, person sitting in US can use one client, like that. So it is used to separate my systems into multiple parts. Then we've seen it just a few little keywords that we are going to use. So first using select query, which is used to extract the data, pull the data from the database. Then update, which is used to modify or change the existing data in the database table. Then insert command, which is used to put an entry, add an entry into the database. Then modify, which works dynamically like both update and insert. First, it will check whether the data is existing in the system or not. If yes, then it will change the data. If it's not available already, then it will add my new entry into the system. That is modify. Finally, it is delete. Delete is used to delete the existing data in the database tables. So then at the end, we've seen the concept of table and database. Table is nothing but an object that is used to store our data in a tabular format, whereas a database is a storage location or a storage place which is used to store the information of an organization. Today, let's see ABAP, workbench, objects. When I say object, it is a very common term. Like for example, whatever the developments that we do normally, whatever that we create, whatever we change, modify, or delete. So each and everything that we do here is termed as an object. So objects, something we create or change or delete in SAP using the development tools. So, for example, could be like a table or a program or a form. All these things will come under objects. Like there are many more. In general, these are called as RICEF objects. There is an abbreviation for RICEF, but I'll tell you the abbreviation for this RICEF and what are all the objects as we proceed further. Then, in general, these are categorized into two types. First is called as a local object. Second is called as a transportable object. So, in local object, so when I say local, in the name itself that suggests that we will not be able to transport this into further systems. Like, okay, first before going into this, let me just explain you the landscapes too. In general, in most of the projects, I would say almost 70 to 80% of the projects, we will only have three landscapes. So first is our development, second is quality, third is production. So these are the three landscapes that are available across most of the companies. So like in few projects, we might also have one more after quality that is called as a regression system, which is also used for testing only. So don't get confused. Mostly, you'll only have these three systems in which you'll work. So first, development system. As the name suggests, so all the developments by app team will be performed under this system, right? So anything that we want to create, change, delete, etc., be it anything, that all that should be done inside our development system alone. So then in quality system, we'll test the changes that we did. For example, I've created a report, I've created one program. To see whether my program is working or not, we'll have to move it to the quality system, and there you can test it. Full proof, like is it working or not. So quality system is used to test my development. Used to the developed objects from the system. Okay, it's not this is the development objects. Then we have finally something called as a production system. So this production system is a very, very fragile system, I would say. We should not never modify anything from production system. Under any scenario, we should never ever execute anything, or we should never ever change anything. We have to be very, very careful while working with production system, because this is the live system that your client is going to use. Only the client or the end user will have the full authorizations, full roles to execute something in production system. Also, our roles are very minimal. For example, from development in development system, if you can do 100 things, like if you can create 100 kinds of objects, you can navigate to 100 different kinds of screens. In a production system, it will only allow you to go to like 10 or 15 screens. That's it. So there are many, many restrictions when it comes to production system. We'll have to be very, very careful while working with production system. So in production system, we will have live data. Once testing is completed in quality system, the developed object is moved to production system. Right. So this are primarily three categories. First one, development system, in which we'll do all our developments. Second is a quality system, under which all the testing happens for the developed object that you did. Once the testing is completed, then that developed object will be moved to your production system. So these three are landscapes. So every system will have a separate ID. So this ID will be different in each project. So I cannot directly tell you how what would be the ID. But for example, I'm just telling for here, this is DE1 for, and in, oh sorry, this is quality. DE1. The system ID is development system DE1, quality is QE1, and production system is DE1. So this naming convention could be different. It could be DD1, DD0, QD1, QD0. It could be anything. Normally, it will start with D, Q, and P only. In most of the projects order, it's gonna start, but the later on the two letters could change depending on your project standards. So for now, understand that this is how the naming convention is gonna be, and even when you're into project also, your colleagues or your team members are gonna call these systems with their system ID itself. Like they'll not say development system, quality system. They'll say DE1, QE1, PE1 only. They'll address your system with your system ID itself, right? Okay, now coming back to the object concept that we were seeing. Okay, so I told you there are two categories of, see, objects are nothing but are developed objects, right? So in general, we'll call them as objects. So any developments that you do are called as objects. So categories of objects, first is a local object. So when I say local, in the name itself, it says it's specific to a region, correct? When we say local, it's specific to a region. So similarly here, local means these cannot be moved to our target systems. So that means, see, any object creation will happen in development system only. But if I create a local object in my development system, it cannot be moved to quality or production system. Correct? Okay. So any object that you create as a local object can only be accessed in the development system. So we normally create local objects whenever we want to test something. Like if we want to practice something, in those cases only we will create our local objects. Local objects cannot be moved to target systems. So when I say target systems, it is our QE1 and E1. So you cannot move these to your target systems. Mostly we will create local objects only while testing okay, not testing, or it could be confusing, while practicing something. Practicing something. Then we have transportable objects. So as the name says, these objects can be transported to the target systems. So it's not complicated at all. Local objects and transportable objects. You will only, while creation of an object, you will get a pop-up wherein it will ask whether it should be a transportable or a local object. You just need to select that button. That's it. Selecting that button will make it either transportable or local object. We will not do anything special to make it, local or transportable. So transportable objects can be moved to your target systems. So in most of the cases, 90%, 80%, 95% of the cases, we will only create transportable objects because we create objects for clients, and client can only access production system, right? So if you create local object, client will never be able to use it. So in order for client to use it, we have to use only transportable object. These objects can be moved to quality or I think QE1 or PE1 or PE1 using a transport request. I'll tell you what is a transport request. This is the in general difference between normal local object with transportable objects and the landscapes in SAP. So any doubts till now, anyone? You can either unmute or you can put it in the chat if you're having any doubts. Okay. So let's see in general what are all the differences that we will have in these transportable and local objects, because understanding this is very clear. We should know when to create a local object and when to create these transportable objects, because we should not capture unnecessary objects in a transport request and move it to production, correct? So we'll have to be very careful while creating these objects. Right. So first difference is local objects, as I said, will be created under a temporary package. Don't worry, what is a temporary package? I'll tell you what is a package. So for now, let's just understand that local object are created under temporary packages. Package is nothing but a folder, but I'll show you exactly what package is in today's class itself, but after this concept. $TMP. So package This is the name of the package, temporary package, that is called as a TMP, $TMP. Whereas transportable objects are always saved in TR or transport request. The abbreviation for transport request is TR. In general, in project, we'll call it as a TR only. We'll not say transport request, we'll say TR. Then, in terms of local object, the system will not create any TR for local objects. Whereas for a transportable object, it is mandatory to have a TR. So system generates a unique TR these objects. And these, like I said, these cannot be released or transported or moved to target systems from our development system. So these cannot be moved to QE1 or DE1 from DE1. Whereas this, since we have a transport request, these objects can be released from DE1 to QE1 and DE1. So in general, we'll only create a local objects for practice purpose or any testing some code, like a temporary code. This is a small piece of code you just want to test before writing it in the actual object. You just wanted to test whether this code will work or not. So in that case, you can just create this. This is created for practice or testing purposes. Yeah, this is created in order to meet or fulfill client requirement. Right, so these are in general differences between our local and transportable objects. So now let's see. We've just seen what is package, right? So we'll see the concept of package. So see, package is nothing but a folder. Like for example, let's say you have 100 photos, right? You have 100 photos in your laptop, mobile phone, anywhere, and you want to save it in somewhere in your system. What is the first thing that you create? You navigate to your drive, local disk, C, D, E, something. There you will create a folder, and inside the folder you will place all your pictures, videos, or anything, right? Music or anything, like songs, etc., etc., movies, and all. First thing that we have to do while saving any object is or anything is, we'll have to create a folder in our laptop, correct? So similarly in SAP also, whenever we want to create any development object, first we'll have to create a folder. So that folder is called as your package. Package is a folder which acts as a collection of objects, right? Similar to our normal laptop desktop concept, it's used to store, like it used to save our files in a separate folder. So we can create as many packages as we want to. But as per your project standards, you have to make sure how many packets should be created, where should be created, naming convention and all. I'll tell you exactly, like as we go further. I'll share you all the project standards too on how these packages should be created. So now, in general, we'll have three categories of packages. First is local or temporary package, right? That we've seen here, like I've written a $TMP. This is our local or temporary package. Then second, standard package. Third, custom package. So first, what is a local package? We've already seen it. So anything, any developments that you do, any if you're creating any local objects, all those local objects will be saved under a temporary package. So this package is used when we want to save the files in local object. And what is a standard package? So these are created or given by SAP itself, and we have to make sure that we should never ever make any changes to standard packages. So never click on change when going to standard packages. These packages are provided by SAP, and as an ABAPer we should never change anything in standard package. Right, then we have custom package. So this is what we normally work on, like 90% of the cases we'll work only on the custom objects, sorry, custom packages. So all our custom developments will be stored in our custom packages. So these are created by developer or web team, and mostly 90-95% of 90% of the time we will use custom objects to store the developed objects. Right? We should always use custom packages whenever we want to save any uh, developed object. Then I told you there is a concept of transport request here, right? So like transportable objects are always saved in a TR or a transport request. So let's see what is a transport request. So TR is a unique request by development system. Target systems. Then it always starts with development system ID. So let's take example of our case only, since our development system ID is DE1. This is how it's gonna be DE1, which could change. Okay, first now let's keep it this way, DE1. Then we'll have a K followed by a K series number, and this number is unique number. This unique number is automatically generated by the system. We will not input the this unique number separately. Your system decides the number to be given. So for example, these things will remain the same. First, your development system ID DE1. If your development system ID is something else, then instead of DE1 you'll get that one here. Then you will have K. K is common in every project everywhere. Whenever you create any TR, K will be common. So after K you will have a unique number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this will be your unique number, which will be changed, which will be decided by your system itself, by your development system itself, or in whichever system that you want to create your TR. We mostly create our TRs in the development system itself. So this is how your normal transportable request looks like. So anyone has any doubts up until now? Okay, I'll take it as a no. Moving on. What are all the types of transport request? So we have two types. First is called as a workbench TR. Second is called as a customizing TR. Don't worry, although you might feel like there are more concepts, so all the concepts that we have discussed today, now, like the local packages, local objects, transportable objects, local package, transportable object package, TR number, and all, this will only take few seconds when we are actually developing objects. So we will only spend few seconds of our time to select these. So in screen, when we are creating the object, we'll get pop-ups to select which object that you want to create. We'll just need to select those pop-ups. That's it. We're very, very simple concepts. So I'll show you exactly, like tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I'll show exactly in the system, and like by creating an object, I'll show you exactly like what is a local object, transportable objects, the packages that it's gonna ask, the package that we can select. So then you will understand it's how easy it will be while creating of any development object in a web. So first, yeah, coming back, types of transport request. So first is a workbench TR and second is a customizing TR. So workbench TR is nothing but a TR that is used by the ABAP team most of the times. So all the developments, all the I told you RISEF, na? RISEF is an abbreviation or something. So all the RISEF objects will be stored in the workbench TR itself, and all the configurations or all the table entry, like you have created a table after which a data, some sort of data should be saved into this tables. So this kind of information like configuration data or table related data will be saved in your customizing TR, but the development objects will always be saved in a workbench TR. That is the reason 80% of the cases mostly we will only work with workbench TRs. So in Workbench TR, all the lab related objects will be saved. And even you don't need to worry which TR should be created for which kind of object. Because when you try to save your object, when you click on save, system will automatically identify which transport request should be created for it. So it will automatically give you a pop-up saying that ki, okay, should I create this transport request? Should I create this workbench TR in your system? It will give you that pop-up. Automatically it will pick. You don't need to worry ki which one should be picked at what time. Then in customizing request, all the configurations or table entries will be saved in customizing TR. So mostly functional teams uses this customizing TR because they are the people who will do configurations in your systems, right? So this is how it is. So workbench TR always an ABAPer will create, and customizing TR always your functional consultant will create. Then the most important concept in SAP, transaction codes. So this is the most important concept in SAP. We like I'm very simple. It's not a very complex at all. So transaction code is nothing but there are few like code names given to few objects. Like for example, if I want to create a program, by default, like for example, take an example of C language or Python or any other coding language. If you want to create a program, if you open that Java application, directly you will land into your coding page, right? In which you can normally do your code because those softwares are only confined to be a logical or coding language softwares. But since SAP is an ERP platform software, you can do like infinite number of things in SAP. You'll have many screens in SAP. So in order to navigate to a different set of screens or different set of objects, we have to use as certain code parameters that are called as transaction codes. So these are small unique codes which are given in the command field in order for us to navigate to any screen. So it's nothing but transaction codes are shortcuts to navigate to any development object or any configurations to in SAP. Few examples would be, for example, SE star. SE star means in place of star we can have numbers, we can have letters, it can be an alphanumeric value. But if a transaction code is starting with SE, then it is related to BAP. These are called as ABAP codes. Whereas if it's starting with SM star, it is maintenance decode or functional decode, right? Like mostly we'll have you in general in every day you might work with what 10, 15 transaction codes. That's it. So throughout your lifetime, maybe you will see you might work with 30, 40 transaction codes throughout your lifetime. Like very minimal. In general, we'll only have few T codes that are related to ABAP that starts with SE. So I'll give you all the list of the transaction codes. So it's easy to memorize. So like hardly 10 transaction codes like SE11, SE38, SE37 like this. You'll have your transaction codes. Easy to memorize. Don't worry. So you hardly 10 if you can manage to memorize 10 transaction codes, that is enough for you to navigate to different screens in SAP. types of transaction codes. We have first one, standard. Second is, first is the standard transaction T codes or custom transaction T codes. So in standard, like as I said earlier here, in terms of packages, standards are something that are given by your SAP itself. Like when you open SAP or when you buy a purchasing license by the SAP, by default SAP will give you some objects in it. So those are called as standard objects or standard package, standard objects, anything. So we should never ever create or change standard related components in the system. We should only reuse those. For example, these SE11 or SE38 that I was telling now, SM, these things, these are standard T codes only, right? So we should never change these T codes, but we can reuse these T codes to navigate to those screens. So that is the purpose of our standard T codes. Standard T codes are created or developed by SAP, and as an ABAPer, we will never modify this standard T codes. We will use these to navigate to different screens in SAP. Right? But whereas custom objects are created by ABAP consultants itself, so we will be creating these custom transaction codes in order to navigate to a few places. Creating a transaction code will take 5 minutes. That's it. Very simple concept. So although this is a most important concept in ABAP, the if you want to create any transaction code, it will not even take 5 minutes hardly. It will take 2 minutes. That's it. Very simple concept. So custom transaction codes are created by BAP team, and these can be modified as per the requirement, right? So we will mostly create, we will work with, definitely we'll always work with standard T codes, but we will never modify those. We will only create custom T codes. We will never change standard T codes. That's it. So, but we will work with standard T codes all the time. Every day we will work with standard T codes. We'll reuse those in order to go to different kinds of screens. So, any doubts, guys, up until now? Okay, I'll take it as a no. Okay, so I'll just cover one more topic today. So after that, we can summarize everything that we have discussed.
One question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Vamshi this side. So,
Yeah, Vamshi.
do you want me to ask this app to the after your session, or you want to complete your code training for today?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Do you want me to ask you the question right now, or you want to complete your code training? Then, yeah, we can ask the question at the end of the session.
Is your question related to the topic that we have discussed?
Not the topic in general. In general.
Okay, yeah, then we can park it for a minute. Let me complete this,
Sure,
then we'll come
no
back.
problem.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so this concept is standard and custom objects. So we have been seeing like this thing, right? Terminology standard, custom, standard, custom. So what's exactly a standard object and what's exactly a custom object? First, standard objects. These are created by SAP. Like as I said before, these are created by SAP and SAP consultants. Like that means either we or any other people, like any other functional teams, they use this, reuse this. Functional consultants will never change or modify these objects. Right? Standard objects are given by or delivered by SAP itself. We will never try to create or change anything that is related to standard objects. Then is custom objects. Created by SAP consultants. It can be a BAP team, it can be functional team, anyone. So any object that you are creating as a custom will be a custom objects. So now, how to identify whether my object is a standard object or a custom object? So we have a certain terminology or a naming convention that we follow in SAP. So any object that starts with Y or Z are objects. That means whenever we want to create anything, any object in SAP, we will either have to use Y or Z in the beginning, right? For example, if I want to create a HR report, in that case, I cannot directly name my report as a HR program. So I'll have to first use Z HR report. That should be our naming convention. So out of Y and Z also, almost 70-80% of the projects will only use Z in their projects. So even similarly in our training also, as we move further, we'll always try to use Z as the prerequisite naming convention whenever we want to try create any object. So apart from Y and Z, all the alphabets from A to X are reserved by SAP itself, and we cannot create an object starting with letters between A to X. So that means if you are seeing any object, let's say you went into a table, right? You went into a table T code. So there you wanted to, just understand whether this is a standard or a custom object. In that case, you just need to see the name of it. Like what is the name of the table? If it's starting with Y or Z, it's straight away custom. If it's not starting with Z or Y, if it's starting with any other letter between A to X, that that becomes your uh, standard objects. So this is how you identify whether it is a custom object or a standard object. Yeah, so that's all for today. Let's quickly summarize on what we have discussed today, then we'll move on to questions. So first we've seen what are all the landscapes in SAP. In general, we'll have three landscapes. Few projects could have four landscapes, another testing system too. So in general, we'll have three. First is a development system, which is used to create all our ABAP related objects. Then we'll have quality system, which is used to test our developed objects. So once the quality our code is tested and if it's foolproof, then our developed objects will be moved to the production system. So then objects are something that we create or change or delete in SAP systems. Like so everything that you create, delete, like these are in general called as an object only. When call these things in your projects and all, you'll call these are object only. So objects are something that we create, change or delete in SAP using the development tools. So these examples of objects could be table, program form. There are many more too. We in general we abbreviated way of this is called as a rise of objects. So rise of stands for something. I'll tell you when we actually get into SAP. Like on the system, I'll show you what is a rise of. Then the categories of objects. So first, there are local objects and there are transportable objects. So local objects cannot be moved to target systems. So these are normally created in development system only for testing purposes or for practice purposes. Whereas your transportable objects can be moved to your target systems, either quality system or production system. So local objects are saved under a temporary package or a local package that is called as a $TMP. So $TMP is the name of your temporary package. Whereas your transportable objects are saved in a transport request and these can be transported to your target systems. So in case of local object, there is no need of any transport request. No TR will be created in local objects. But in transportable objects, a TR is mandatory. System will pitch for a TR whenever you want to save it as a transportable object. Then local objects cannot be moved to your target systems, and transportable objects, since it has a TR transport request, it can be moved to your target systems. The local object like used for practice purpose only, whereas your transportable objects are actual live further live requirements that you are going to get from your client. Then what is a package? Package is nothing but a folder that you create in SAP under which you save your object. So it is a collection of objects. So you can place like hundreds or thousands of objects in one package also, depending on what project you are. They might ask you to create a different package for every object or use single package for all the objects that you create. That depends. Then categories of projects. So first, sorry, categories of packages. First, a local package. Second is a standard package. Third is a custom package. So local packages or temporary packages are $TMP packages, which are used whenever we want to create any local object. Then is a standard package which are delivered or created by SAP itself, and we will never ever make any changes to the standard packages. Then custom packages which are created by ABAP team, and we will mostly use custom packages to save our developed objects. Then what is a transport request? It is a unique request that is generated by your system in order to save your transportable changes and move those to the target systems. So always a transport request number will start with your development system ID, that is in our case that is DE1, then followed by a K, then a unique series number. So after K you will have a unique series number which will be generated by your system. Then using types of the transport request. First is a workbench transport request and second is a customizing TR. So workbench TR are used by ABAP team. We save most of our developed objects in the workbench TR, whereas your customizing TR is used to save our configurational data or table entry kind of data. Mostly functional teams are going to use these customizing TRs. Then transaction codes. So transaction codes are the shortcuts which are used to navigate to any development object or any configurations that are there in the system. So in general, we'll mostly use 10, 15 transaction codes on daily basis, not more than that. So any T code that is starting with SE followed by any numeric or alphanumeric number uh, belongs to ABAP T codes, and any T code that is starting with SMR maintenance T codes, which are generally used by your functional teams. Then in types of transaction T codes, we'll have in generally two. First is the standard T code, second are custom T codes. So standard T codes are created by SAP. As a development team, we should never change the standard T codes, but we should reuse these in order to navigate to different set of screens. Whereas the custom T codes are created by the ABAP team itself, the ABAP team, and these can be modified as per the requirement. Then final concept is standard and custom objects and how to differentiate between these standard and custom objects. So any object that is starting with Y or Z are custom objects, and any object in the system that is not starting with Y or Z are standard objects. So SAP mostly will never use, 90% of the time SAP doesn't use Y or Z for their objects. They'll only use letters from A to X. So if any object, any table, program, form, anything in system, if it's starting with A to X, any letter between A to X, those are your standard objects. Never change them. Yeah. So this is all for today. We are open for questions now.
Okay. So I actually come from a non-IT background. Okay.
Hmm.
So what my question is, the coding and programming, to what extent should we actually be prepared in this module for SAP ABAP?
Okay, good question. So in comparison with to other, IT softwares that are available in the market, ABAP
Mhm,
coding is somewhat very easier because here, see, in general, what we'll do is we'll try to pull the data from database. We'll do some mathematical operations or some operations after extracting the data,
mhm,
and we'll send it to the output to see it in the screen. Like this is in general our responsibility. And to do this, mostly the coding concept or the mostly the coding structure in ABAP is somewhat like English, right? So for example, if I want to select any data, I'm just giving some high level examples here on how the coding structure will
mhm,
be. So if I want to extract any data, I will write select all these fields, all the field names from table into table. That's it. That is my syntax to extract the data. So after extracting the data, if I want to read the data, I'll write simply read table, the internal table name. That's it. That data will be read. So if I want to move any data from left to right, one variable to another variable, I'll just simply write move data from one to right, left to right. So that's how the coding is. So if I want to delete any data, like if there are, let's say there are any duplicates in my, like I've extracted some data and there are duplicates in it. So in that case, I'll write delete adjacent duplicates, right? This is English, pretty much English.
absolutely.
So each
Absolutely.
and every keyword that you see in ABAP is pretty much English. We will not use these weird symbols and all. So it's pretty easy.
Thank you.
Yep. So anyone else, guys? Any doubts in generic or related to topics that we have covered? Okay. Let me also show you the documentation that we are going to share you. So these are all the chapters that are there. So at end of each topic or each chapter, you will be getting these documents from which you can revise yourself. So for example, all the topics that we have covered till now, like introduction to SAP or how the ERP works, other vendors like I said, Oracle, Salesforce, which are the competitors for SAP. What is a server? What is a client? The three-tier architecture, application layer, database layer. Everything is well documented here. We've seen transaction codes, custom transaction codes, standard transaction codes. So these shortcuts we haven't discussed yet, though these shortcuts we'll be discussing in the upcoming classes. So yeah, all these things we'll be discussing in the upcoming classes. So by tomorrow complete the introduction. So either tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I'll take you into the system. I'll show you how SAP's clone look like. So if I have to show you the detailed documentation, don't get confused. This is only for your reference purpose, as in how the documentation will be. So this is the second chapter called as a DDIC. What is this? Yeah, DDIC. Let's say at a later point of time, like 6 months later or 1 year later, if you're ambitious on how to create the table, in that case, you just need to come back to this document. This you see steps to create a database table. So everything is highlighted in line by line because this is a handwritten notes. So I wrote it basically. So that's the reason it's very in detail. It's not something that you downloaded from the web. You're not gonna get find this anywhere in the web, right? So each and everything like executing the T code or entering the short description, clicking on the button. If you are getting any pop-ups in between, even for that also, there is a line here which says select the pop-up button, check the check boxes, check the initial value, etc., etc. So all these things will be in detail. And in between you'll also find these kind of things like these highlighted lines, which are sort of your interview questions too, and also the important topics that are there in this particular chapter. So like at the end of the complete course, I'll anyhow share you the interview questions as well, but during the session also you can just remember these things, the highlighted ones, which would actually help you to memorize the important concepts as we go further. Right, so this is how your documentation will look like too. So if anyone, no one is having any